Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Real Happy Hour podcast. My name is Ola, and on this show, we talk about the relational dynamics of characters in films and TV shows. With me today, we have a special guest, and his name is Daniel Dempster. Mr. Daniel Dempster is a producer and director, and he made a really remarkable documentary last year, sometime around October. And it's called Everyone Can Rap as an ITV series, and we're going to be talking about that today. So thank you very much for coming, Daniel.
No worries at all. Happy to be here.
Nice. So before we get into it, I want to start right from the beginning. It starts from ITV sort of, making a sort of initiative to create more black content, and you were one of the four.
One of five.
One of five.
Yeah.
So can you please talk about that process?
So ITV, because in the wake of the George Floyd stuff and Black Lives Matter and all that sort of stuff, there's always kind of been a bit like the way that I got into TV was through a scheme, through a diversity scheme, and there's always been these schemes because there's always been this like a lack of black folk in the industry. But then I came in like 10 years ago, and then off the back of that. We're getting more people in the industry, but then they tend to be at runner, researcher level, and then probably leave by the time they get to becoming like an assistant producer. So with this Fresh Cuts initiative, what it was about creating, it was about black directors creating their first 1 hour for ITV. Which is a massive thing when you're in broadcasting. It's a big deal. It basically brought together five first-time film directors. We're all at varying levels. I've obviously made a lot of episodes, a lot of series of the rap game, which meant that mine lent to my rap film. There was some people that had already made films for Netflix, some people that had never made anything, some people were like production assistants more like not commercials as such, but just scripted, and others. The other one was like a journalist, and another guy who was like a cast. He was more into casting before. So yeah, we all had varying levels of skill sets and just did different things before coming into that. But that was the great kind of leveler and gave us all our first 1 hour,
And it was a really interesting 1 hour. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But going into the show, how was the casting process? Because that was interesting. You got a very unique set of people.
The casting process was cool. It was tough because I was working on pretty much two shows at the same time, and whilst I was in the daytime, I was working on Rap Game at night time. I was had like a really small casting team, and I was like giving them steers and giving them direction, but what I wanted the film to do and the way I wanted the film to be casted, I think we did really well. Like the inspiration for the film came from my son, and he's autistic, but he speaks, but I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't literally classify him as someone that's the most verbal. So during lockdown, I realised that there was like a synergy, a connection between him and rap music, and he'd concentrate and focus on that, whereas he wouldn't focus and concentrate on stuff before. So being able to replicate that and have an autistic person in the film was just like perfect. Initially, I wanted all of my cast to be white folk because I wanted, with it being like black voices and black stories for the Fresh Cuts thing, I wanted the black part to be rap and rappers and the environment that these people are going to, and I wanted these white people to speak to people that look like them, to then express to them how hard rap is, how skilled rap is, how much of a valued art form it is, how much it can help people with language difficulties, how much it can help people with autism, how much it can help people with depression. I just wanted to show all the positive benefits of rap.
Okay, that's really interesting. You said really interesting things there. The first thing I want to pick up on is the personal sort of experience of autism that you have. How important is it for a director, producer, someone in the arts to sort of have something that they're going through to express that in their art? Does it make a difference when you're sort of going through it? Or
I think it does make a difference. I think yeah, you're able to familiarize, and it just means more. It just means more. There was a day when we went to the studio, like, so halfway through the film, they like, obviously we're teaching them how to rap from scratch. They've never rapped before, know nothing about it. Halfway through, we take them to the studio, and like, obviously, like, we're making the stuff, but you've always got that feeling that they might not rap. They might just not rap.
I think you guys were surprised.
I think I was very surprised, because like, as much as we're teaching them, we weren't directly teaching them. We were teaching them the foundation so that they could go away and then come back with it. So like, there was the moment when Daniel rapped in the studio, like, yeah, it touched me. It really touched me. Like,
He had a light. Daniel had a light about him.
He had yeah. He was very bright, very positive, and just wanted to please. But yeah, that day after you rapped, I think I had like a tear in my eye. I was like, this is mad. Like, and then you just start thinking, like, he's 35, no, 30, maybe 34, and my son's like 5. And you think, like, what could happen? Like, could my son rap one day? And yeah, you just think about all those stuff. So having a connection to it made me want it to be a success even more. Yeah.
And it definitely is.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to, actually, I have spoken about the personal approach, right? But there was a second thing that you mentioned in there. I'm trying very hard to remember now, but I'll come back to it. One of the things that I also saw or experienced was how you were breaking stereotypes with every character.
Yeah.
Every character was breaking a stereotype.
Yeah.
Nicole, for example, was a single mom who, she lived in council flat. She wasn't beaten down.
No.
She was a representation of people that we know.
Yeah, big time.
But when we see them on TV, usually they're either just broken
downtrodden.
down.
Yeah.
It's never real, the realistic representation of the amazing personality that they are, people that they are, that live in council flats, that live in everywhere, not just council flats, just black female representation.
Yeah.
And she was happy, she was a single mom, and it was just, I was just like, wow, I know her.
Yeah.
And going to Karen, I like also Karen, the fact that her name is Karen, and there was a whole situation with Karen.
Yeah, Karen's, yeah.
And
I got a Karen rapping.
It was interesting to see her, and even the idea she had of rap beforehand, and she thought it would be somewhat, tough and brutal and all that, and
the negative connotations that come with it.
And then her very first experience, which is weird for a middle-aged woman for to be expressed at that point, but she's like, oh wow, this is really poetic, and I can see the light in this, and
yeah, like I think that she really, like, we say that it's quite late to be going to your first rap thing, but it's not really. If it's not your world, if your world is choirs and, I don't know, hymns, then you're not going to be in this rap world. And I don't know, as we get older, you just distance yourself more from what the kids are doing. Remember, rap's only about 30 years old.
Yeah, it's not that old.
Like, alright, it's a bit older than that, but it's not an old
Maybe
genre.
in the UK.
Yeah, so if you've come from before that, and then all you see is just the negative stuff that with it, like, you're not going to venture into it. You're not going to touch it. You're alright. You might hear a couple of tunes on the radio, but we know that radio rap tunes aren't saying anything.
Well, I think that is why a documentary like yours is important, because available content is the way other cultures are able to see other cultures.
Of course.
And unfortunately for black culture or brown skin culture, that's the thing. Is we a lot of the content being received is negative. A lot of them is just the tough black woman, or the hard thuggish black man, or the downtrodden family. It's important to just have that representation of, this is us, and we're thriving, and we're happy, and we're so pleasant to be around.
Yeah, big time. It's like, with all that stuff, I just think it comes down to who's consuming the stuff. And the major part of, like, most people that consume stuff in this country don't look like us. So then when it has connotations that aren't like us but are entertaining, then they just light up quicker and light up faster. Like, a man saying is going to do more than someone talking sense. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we always got to remember who's consuming this stuff, and that's what is gonna perpetuate it and make it do that much more. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. The negative stuff does tend to penetrate, and yeah, it's just our job to try and balance it, because yeah, we're black people as a whole. Like, and I hate even saying like black people. We vary from so much from place to place. Like, we're both black. You're from Nigeria. I'm from the Caribbean. Yeah, years before that, we were all from the same place, but like there are still nuances.
All African.
We all are 100%. We're all African, but there's still nuances that we can appreciate about being from these different places that make us a little different, even though we're all family. You know what I'm saying? So it's yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and even going further in terms of breaking stereotypes, the hip hop psych team.
Yes,
that was also another interesting representation of.
Yes,
I was just like, how is this all just coming together? How did you find them? And they're such a eclectic crew.
Yeah. So like, yeah, as I was saying before, the way that I come up with the idea was my boy and all of that sort of stuff, and then I was speaking to my mentor, and he was saying basically that. He was saying the way that I could make this idea stronger was if I had somebody that was like academic. Is there somebody academic that does stuff with rap? So it just sent me on a little path, a little search to find the people that analyze lyrics or do something to do with psychotherapy and rapping, and how we can try and prove that. We wanted to use them a lot more, but they're expensive. They were just so expensive, and I had such a minimal budget to make the show. Like, I would have loved for them to come back on that final day to just like give us not a recap, but just a sum up of how they feel, what they feel these guys had addressed. But yeah, having them was it just elevated the piece more. Like, it was like, all right, cool. If we are talking about this being an art form, then yeah, there should be academics that are actually breaking this stuff down, because bruv, you got academics on things like David Beckham and Beyonce, and you got courses on these kind of things. Like, why wouldn't you have some kind of course on rap and breaking down lyrics? And it's an art form. Like, you would on poetry, you would on any and every other type of art. It just seems to be that where this art form derives from, sometimes it troubles people, rubs some people up the wrong way. Yeah.
Okay. Now, rapper Tef.
Yes.
How did he get involved?
So my boy Nelson, he's the first person I go to when I think about making any of this stuff. He's the one that kind of said, yeah, do you know what, you can do it, it's possible. But he's friends with Tef's manager, and yeah, and so they put us in contact. He put us in contact, and I think the first time I spoke to Tef's manager, I think he saw the
vision.
Yeah, he saw the vision. He saw what we could do within it. Like, I'll keep it completely above board. Like, obviously, I was in discussion with a few different people. But for me, the most important thing was that the rapper needed to be respected by our community.